Alright, you guys, so continuing the crit here. Again, I'll try and wrap it up. So, Jeff, my first question was, is this a portrait? Anyway, um, just thought that was kind of funny. Um, Overall, I think you're doing pretty good actually on all three of your sketches. Um, they they have good form, good solidity, pretty good use of value. Again, I think the markers, even though you're using them fairly well, I think the markers are a clumsier way to go about doing it because they're just harder for you guys to control. The other thing I'd be a little careful of is when you guys are doing tonal drawing, I think many of you guys are still focusing much too much on local values rather than shadow patterns. Shadow patterns are really the thing that are going to help. The local values, they're so complex. Like when you look in these areas in here, they're so complex and so confusing. It's really hard for you guys to simplify. But if you concentrate on the shadows, I think you'll have an easier time of it. For instance, even though I know you can see all this kind of stuff, it looks like there was a shadow from the music building here. That actually should be given a lot more prominence. That there should be a lot more contrast between this and this, if this is in shadow, than there would be between, say, this and this. It's just it's reality. So that's something I would really watch out for. Is you've got to accustom yourself to seeing more the shadows than the local values. Now on yours here, these are pretty good. Like I was saying in class, they're fairly painterly. You've got pretty good. You're still drawing with the brush, so these are pretty good. I think both of them, both of them are coming along. What I'm impressed by is in areas like this, and in areas like this where you're really painting and drawing at the same time, and that's something that many of you guys are still struggling with. Now, this next one I think was kind of funny. Anyway, so hang on a second. I've got to pause this recording. So as I was saying, this one made me laugh. By the way, you guys, if you hear some snorting noises, that isn't me. That's my daughter who just woke up. Um, anyway, so on, pretty funny. Uh, let's see with these, Rachel. I think you're actually doing really well on these. Um, you know, you're using the markers, which are complicated to work with, but you're doing a pretty good job. You got to watch your perspective a little bit on things um, like this line here and this line here. Those feel a little bit off. They're not going to the same VP, which I imagine was over here somewhere. So watch that. But again, the markers are hard to work with, and you're doing a fairly good job of that. The problem I have with them now is just some of the perspective issues are getting a little bit weird, and you'll get better at that. But keep an eye on that. Same thing. Basically, there's some perspective issues, but you're handling the markers fairly well as a painterly tool, which is hard to do. Daniel, I think one thing I'd say about this is don't worry so much about these ruled lines. You really don't need them. I mean, I understand why you're putting them in there and everything, but actually the way you're working with the markers is pretty good. Same thing here. You're kind of using them in a more painterly way, so that's fine. This one's actually my favorite one of yours because I think it does a nice job of combining, you're sketching, but you're sketching, but in an effective way. Be careful of stuff like this. If you're going to put something like that in, you got to really put it in right. Right now, you're writing it instead of drawing it. But again, this one's your best one, I think. Let's see, Miss Schwoob. Try to watch for things like this. Again, it's a perspective issue. You've got this line going here and this line going here. You've just got to get that into your hand where those lines are converging rather than diverging. And also you need to be working with some more solid shapes. They're not reading as solid shapes. They're reading as just almost random hatching. Kenta, again, bigger shapes. If you're seeing these kinds of shadows on the side of the tree, you're going to see them you're going to see those kinds of shadows everywhere. So I'm not even sure what this is. Is this supposed to be tone or, so your tonal stuff isn't reading very well. You've got to be focusing more on the patterns that are created. Um, let's see. Same thing on this one, Kenta. You're kind of drawing the objects, but you're not really paying enough attention to the shadows that are created. So you got to watch that. We can discuss that more when I see you, but it's things like on this tree on the right here, in this area, you've got shadows indicated in some areas, but then there's no real shadow on the tree, but then there's shadows here, so I don't quite know what's going on. Same kind of thing, but in pen. You've got some values on the side of the house, and it looks like this is in shadow, but this is in light. But then what's going on here if that's in light and that's in shadow? I don't really understand. Here it looks like we've got a shadow here and a shadow here, but then the legs don't appear to have any shadows, or it just doesn't make sense. So again, it's got to be more tonal. Bikram, this one isn't bad, but again, be careful in this area, like in here. You've got some areas that I can't really tell what's supposed to be local value and what's supposed to be in shadow. Again, same thing, you guys. Watch your patterns. Same thing. I can't tell. It looks like some of this is supposed to be shadow and some of this is supposed to be shadow. But then if all that's shadow, I really... I don't know, it's not making sense to me. This is becoming automatic as well, so watch out for that. Jessica, this one's looking pretty good. I like that it's pretty painterly. I like that you're really watching those light and dark patterns. Be a little careful of stuff like this. If there's a shadow coming off here, where is it here? How did that happen? Things like that. So not bad. Again, though, watch your distinctions between light and shade. You guys are still trying to put in a lot of stuff in the shadow when you can actually simplify that quite a bit. So I also want you to get a little more ambitious on something like this. Well, this is an okay sketch and everything. It's not as complicated as what I'm looking for. And ones like this, again, try and put in some more inorganic elements. The trees are fine and all, but again, you guys take a look at stuff like this. If this is in shadow and this is in shadow, go ahead and simplify those things. Bring them together. Vossler. I need more. This is a nice sketch of a lamp and all that. It's a nice tonal sketch, but it's just not complex enough. There isn't enough environment. It doesn't really place it anywhere. And also watch the size or figure out what went wrong on the size there. Same thing on this one with the size. And again, which side is in the light? I'm assuming this is in shadow and this is in light, but then over here I can't tell. That's in shadow, so you guys really aren't simplifying into light and shadow yet. This one, what I see a lot of you guys doing, these last couple are kind of, you guys are imitating tonal results, but not really thinking in terms of tonal practice. So where the light and shade is and all that. You're thinking more in terms of, okay, this is the value that results. And so you're getting some decent drawings like this, but it will be helped a lot if you really were thinking more in terms of light and shadow. Like for instance, if this is in shadow, drop all this out at first. Don't worry about this little reflected light area in here. Okay, Tiffany, not bad at all. Again, it's a little bit of what I was just talking about. It's focusing a little bit too much on values rather than patterns, because I don't need to see all this stuff in here necessarily right away. But your patterns are strong enough that it's working fairly well. This one less so. Again, if there's a shadow here, the shadow here isn't really reading very well relative to the light. There are things in the light that are too close to the shadow. And this one, as with Mr. Vossler's lamp, make it more complex. Give me an environment where this thing is sitting in. Okay, and Phil, main thing I'd say on yours, Phil, is kind of, I know I've been saying speed up, but you can't speed up with stuff like this. This is getting kind of messy, and you need to just take your time with it. You need to give it the time it needs. Also, watch things like this, your perspective, how these things are sitting on the table. There was one, okay, this is actually, I want to talk about this one at the end, almost first. Not a bad attempt, but again, you're overcomplicating these trees a bit. Now on this one, what I want you to watch out for is look where your eye level would be. If I extend these two lines up to the eye level, they're going to be way up here somewhere, but I seriously doubt it. I think they should have been in here, and so something isn't making sense. Some of these things, you know, if I extend these lines and have them converge, they're not going to hit on an eye level. So you guys really got to watch that. The perspective stuff, you know, how high is this doorknob off the floor? You got to fix those kinds of things. All right, so you guys, that's it on the second video. Hope that helped your crit. I'll try and get into the other ones, but now that my daughter's up, it may be a little bit. Eliana, do you want to say bye-bye? Can you say bye-bye?
No.
You can't?
No.
You can't say bye-bye?
No.
Can you say bye-bye?
No.
Okay, she can't say bye. Okay. She can't say bye-bye right now, so I'll say bye-bye for her, and we'll talk to you guys later.